Good morning. Hope you're all doing well. Sunday morning, January 28th, 2024. And I'm back to do a video. Hope you're doing well. I posted a question last week asking people what they thought was the most overrated album or albums. And I got some interesting responses, and I'm just going to get right into it. This is a video dedicated to talking about albums and musical experiences that are just well overrated. And for the most part, I agreed with all of your inclusions. There are a couple that I disagree on, but for the most part, I agree with most of these. And yeah, I got several responses, so I'm going to get into those now. I'm going to dive right into this. And I'll make little screenshots of the messages so you guys can see them for yourselves, but I'm just going to read them here. Let me pull this up. Okay, the first one, and I'm not going to say your names again. Sorry. It's like this one I could probably say, but when I say names on YouTube, they will disable comments due to security and privacy measures, even though your YouTube name is public, and if you use your real name, it's public. But if I use your name, any iteration of your name, YouTube tends to disable comments. So I'm just gonna I'm gonna have some uniformity when it comes to using people's names. Anyway, I got a comment here. The comment is Dark Side of the Moon. The Great Gig in the Sky is pretty annoying. Animals is a much better album. Yeah, maybe that should be in the overplayed category. I don't know that it's overrated. Like I like Pink Floyd just as much as anyone. A certain Pink Floyd. The last comment I'm going to get to is sort of a 180 on Pink Floyd. Someone mentioned another Pink Floyd album that I agree with. I don't know that Dark Side of the Moon is overrated. I think it's overplayed. Does that make sense? I like Dark Side of the Moon. I mean, I think it's a brilliant album. It's one of those rare instances in history where I can understand the popularity of it, the reason people love it. I like Pink Floyd. Pretty much everything up to Animals. I really enjoy Pink Floyd. Everything post Animals, not so much. But and your Animals is a great album. I'm not disagreeing with you. It's just different than Dark Side of the Moon. I like Dark Side of the Moon. There are times when I listen to it, but I think that leads into why I asked the question of overrated albums. I think people confuse overrated and overplayed sometimes, maybe. Like, there are plenty of albums that I really enjoy, but they're just played so much. Like Nirvana, never mind. Like, I have no problem with Nirvana. I like Nirvana. I saw them live a few times way back in the early 90s. I like Nirvana, but they just got caught up in this thing that was beyond them. They got caught up in this whole industry machine. One of the reasons why Kurt Cobain was so fucking stressed towards the end of his life, especially, they just got caught up in this weird mechanical bullshit where the music industry just sucks people up and spits them out. And I like Pink Floyd. I like Dark Side of the Moon. I don't know that it's overrated. I think it's overplayed. When you're driving down the road and you turn the radio on and you want to hear some songs, sometimes you're not ready to hear Us and Them again. Like, it's a great song, you enjoy it, but you don't want to hear it 24/7. It's the same with Nirvana. Like, I like Nirvana just fine, but I don't want to hear them every day, day in and day out. Maybe a couple times a year. I think these types of albums just remind you that especially radio is just super boring. They play the same shit. They can't even play a different song from that album. How about you play another song from Dark Side of the Moon rather than Great Gig in the Sky or Money or Us and Them? How about you play Time or something? I don't know. Play something else from that album. Do we have to hear the same fucking thing over and over? So yeah, I think they're overplayed, not so much overrated. But I thank you for your comment, by the way. This one was funny. Um, Yeshno posted a comment before. He thought I had said unrated albums. You have to explain to me what you meant by that too. What do you mean? I don't follow that. Unrated. What do you mean by that? I don't even know what that means. Unrated album? Tell me what that means. I'd love to know. But he had a list of records. He mentioned Pan Cow in there. I was like, really? Pan Cow is overrated? I didn't know it was rated at all. But anyway, he corrected himself here. He face palmed himself. Yes, no, I love you, man. I love your support. Thank you very much. Um, Here are his lists, or here is his list of albums. Sisters of Mercy, Floodland. Yeah, man, I agree with you on that. I don't get that shit at all. Andrew Eldridge, like I appreciate him more than I like him. I remember reading interviews with him, and he was always really funny. Um, and he's a cat lover, which I love. I remember seeing these pictures of him while he was being interviewed, and he was surrounded by cats, and I like him. But man, listening to Sisters of Mercy is a slog, man. I don't get that either. And Floodland's just like any. I mean, Floodland is his most popular album, I guess, his most over the top album, right? I'm not a huge Sisters of Mercy fan, obviously, but didn't he have Jim Steinman produce his records? Jim Steinman was the Meatloaf guy. And that's what Sisters of Mercy sounded like. They sounded like a goth Meatloaf or some shit. And no thanks on the Sisters of Mercy. His voice is very grating and annoying. Um, yeah, no thanks. Not a fan. I'm with you on the Sisters of Mercy. Bob Dylan, Blood on the Tracks. I don't know, man. I don't necessarily agree with you on that. I love Bob Dylan. I like Blood on the Tracks too. What can I say? I don't know. You'll have to tell me why you think that's overrated. I think I have a feeling as to why you think that, but I want you to explain it first, if you can, if you're kind enough to take your time to do that. Dave Brubeck, Timeout. I don't know that album well enough to have a thought on it. So you have to explain that. The Fugees, yeah, I mean, the Fugees, yeah, I agree with you. Like, to me, I don't even hate the Fugees. I just think the Fugees are a lot of nothing. Just a big bag of nothing, big bowl of nothing. When I have my comments, by the way, this is about the music. I'm not making personal, not trying to make personal jabs. I'm sure the people in the Fugees are very nice people, but the music, no thanks. Um, yeah, that album, God, people were obsessed with that album. I do remember that. And I remember listening to it thinking, wow, this is just another throwaway hip hop album. It's just shit. Throwaway radio garbage. Um, it's masturbatory material for the music industry. They know that they can shove this down our throats and people will buy it and it can make a lot of money, but it's really not. There's no intention in making the music have any staying power. It's not going to last. But in its day, it was huge. I mean, does it still get played? I don't know anybody listening to them. So, but yeah, the Fugees, I mean, who cares? Now, this is where I really, really agree with you, Yesh. No, LCD Soundsystem. Yes. Yes. They are fucking terrible. Or I should say he's terrible, right? What's his name? James Murphy? Murphy? My God. See, I just said I'm not making personal attacks, but I have to say, this guy's a major douche. Every time I see an interview with this guy, just his whole look and his take on music and his approach, it's fucking tired, man. This is a guy who's really self-absorbed and into himself, and his music is even more tired. By the way, this guy wouldn't have a career if it weren't for people like Carl Craig, which, by the way, I'm going to do a video on Carl Craig soon. Because when I saw when you included LCD Soundsystem, it made me think this Murphy guy's whole career is based on ripping off Carl Craig in a way. And it made me think, God, why haven't I done a video on Carl Craig? So I'm going to do that. But yeah, LCD Soundsystem, oh my God. I can't listen to them. Like, this is one of the worst bands I have ever heard. Um, they're almost like a bad karaoke version of, like, you know, uh, Electro Clash or something. Like, I don't know that he even knows what he's doing. But the scary thing about LCD Soundsystem is that they have this really rabid fan base. Did you see? They made a documentary about this a decade or so ago. I remember when I worked at Discogs, me and the people at the office were just laughing about this. They made a documentary about people following them around, like the Grateful Dead. these fans were like camping out and going to all their shows and following them around. They had a final show in Madison Square Garden or something. Who knew they were that popular? But these these millennial or Gen X hipsters were like in tears crying that they were able to see LCD Soundsystem's last show. It's like, really? I just remember thinking, man, if this group is drumming up this much emotion from you, you need to get out of your closets and experience the world, man. This is just an opinion. I know people, there'll be at least one person out there who will hate me for this, but LCD Sound System is absolute shit. Terrible. Yeah, they're overrated and they're absolute shit on top of it. Oh my God, awful. Awful. Everything about them. Yeah, Chanel, I couldn't agree more with you. They just, blah. No. And Neutral Milk Hotel. That popular one. You know, that one with the lady with the thing for a head. I think it's a slice of a cucumber or something. Yes. 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 Triple yes. Neutral Milk Hotel. Go fuck yourselves. No thanks. Neutral Milk Hotel. Okay. Living in the Pacific Northwest, in the Portland area, especially, the people that live here and flock to live here, those kinds of people, this is their album. This is their anthem. They love this album. I don't know that there's a place on earth that is more rabid about this album. And I think the name of the album is In an Airplane Over the Sea, right? You know, it's when I hear the album, I don't necessarily hate it, but it's so blindly overrated. People are so into this album. I think the songwriting's fine. I mean, again, I don't hate the album, but yeah, it's insanely overrated for what it is. I think people get stuck on the like when you ask someone who loves this album, it's they always have the same response. Well, it's about Anne Frank. Don't you understand? It's an album about Anne Frank. So, as someone who kind of tends to overanalyze things, when I hear that same response over and over, I kind of understand it because Anne Frank has, she's her story is one of the most fascinating in human history. I'm not denying that. And I've read Diary of Anne Frank like everybody has. It's a brilliant book. How can you not love Anne Frank? Okay. It's like, it's one of the most fascinating stories ever. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't mean it makes a good album 60 years later. Okay. That album is tough to listen to for me. Not because it's sad. I like sad shit. Not because it's depressing or whatever, because it's just sad, whiny emo rock. If that's your thing, okay, fine. You can love that album. But that album is fucking painful to listen to. And I hate saying this, but I'm gonna say it. Okay, I'm gonna say it anyway. You know how when you're meeting somebody, and I speak from experience here. You know when you meet someone and you really like them, but like they say one thing or they like something or they dislike something, and then it kind of makes you think twice about their decision making properties. Um, like it's a direct experience. A couple years ago, I was dating someone, and uh, she invited me into her apartment. I was, we're hanging out in her apartment. We're having a decent time. She had said a couple of things that set off some red flags, but it was like, okay, when you're dating, these are the things you have to weigh. We were talking about music, and Neutral Milk Hotel came up, and in the back of my mind, she started telling me how she loved that album, and in the back of my mind, I was like, don't. If she asks you what you think about it, don't tell her because you will never see her again. um, I'm a person who doesn't hold his opinions in, as you know. I am very apt to being very. I'm a blunt force instrument when it comes to my opinions. Let me put it that way. So she did. She asked me what I thought, and I was like, "Yeah, I don't know." Like, I try to avoid it because I've gotten myself into trouble in the past, especially on dates. You don't want to tell a woman that you really hate something that they love. It's just a bad idea. It's a bad idea. Let me give you Uncle Occasional Feel Good is going to give you some advice here, people. Don't ever do that on a date. Um, but she asked me, and I was like, "Yeah, no, I don't think so." And she goes, "Hey, oh, I forgot. I wanted to show you." And she pointed toward the back room where her bedroom was, and there was a poster of the cover of the album. That's right, Yashno. She had a huge poster of the cover of that album on her wall. I was like, oh, fuck. Okay. Whew, don't say anything. So she kept pressing me about it. So finally, I was like, okay, you asked for it. This is a preemptive apology. And I unloaded. I mean, I wouldn't say I unloaded. I just say, I think the album is shit. I just told her what I told you. I think it's whiny emo rock. Not for me. Let me just put it that way. And needless to say, I never saw her again after that. I don't think it was because of that. I mean, we, had some other differences, but I am really in general not a very judgmental person at all. In fact, I'm really not at all. I don't care what people's tastes in music are, but there's that one point when you're talking to someone and they say they love or hate something, and you have to stop and look at them like, okay, yeah, like I'm atheist. I'm completely non-religious in every way. So when someone says that they're hardcore Christian, it's not that I'm not judging them so much. It's just that I'm realizing like, yeah, this isn't going to work. This will not work with us. Same with Neutral Milk Hotel. Like if someone likes that album or loves it, you just in the back of your mind you're thinking, yeah, this probably isn't going to work. It's like someone coming up and telling you that their favorite band is Fish or something. Like you're sitting there thinking, yeah, I like this person, but something's off. Their decision-making properties are not all there. That their mental faculties are skewed, and they probably think the same thing about me. Anyway, yes, no, there's a little story about Neutral Milk Hotel. Um, you can use music to screen people. Let me put it that way. And she's better off without me anyway. I'm sure she was more than happy to get rid of my ass. And then Wilco, yeah. Wilco, pick anyone. I know. I'm with you. What can you say about Wilco? It's just like yawn-inducing yawn rock. That's what it is. I don't know that I hate Wilco. I just think that I don't give them any time. You know exactly what you're getting with a Wilco album. It's like, oh, it's another Wilco album. Okay. Oh, it sounds exactly like the last album. Okay. Yeah, I'm with you, dude. I don't get it. That's for another channel. That kind of music is definitely for another channel, and I don't want to be part of that channel. So thank you for all of those. I really appreciate that. Um, Emery, I'll just say your last name. I'm not going to say your full name because YouTube will banish the comments. Bruce Springsteen on the run or Born to Run. This was overkill. Its success mystified me. Darkness on the Edge of Town album was Springsteen for me. Yeah, I don't was Born to Run overrated. I guess it is overrated. Yeah. That's just this big that's just big anthem rock, right? It's schmaltz rock. I actually like Bruce Springsteen, like I don't love all of his music, but I like him. He seems like a nice guy, normal, down to earth person. I remember whenever I see Bruce Springsteen, it reminds me of my days at Discogs. I worked, the main Discogs office is here in Beaverton, Oregon, but we also have an office in the Netherlands in Utrecht. And so we had a number, like, I don't know, a dozen employees in that office. Discogs is huge in Europe, actually more popular in Europe than it is here in the United States. So we had an office there in Holland. And we had a Dutch employee there. They were pretty much all Dutch. There were a couple of Italians and a few Spaniards, but it was mainly Dutch people. And this woman that I worked very closely with for about a year, she loved anything having to do with New Jersey. And Bruce Springsteen was at the top of the list. She loved Bon Jovi too. And I can't stand Bon Jovi. So we would have these really spirited, funny arguments about Jersey rock. Like she loved anything from New Jersey. She absolutely loved this, especially Bruce Springsteen and Bon Jovi. Um, so yeah, whenever I see that, it always makes me think how she overrated all that stuff. Also, it cracked me up that this Dutch girl was so into the New Jersey sound. I'm like, have you ever even been to New Jersey? Like, what is it about New Jersey? I don't know. There's just something in the water there. I love it. I'll listen to anything from New Jersey. Okay. Um, But yeah, whenever I see Bruce Springsteen, I think of that experience. I don't know. I don't know. Is Born to? I think all Bruce Springsteen albums are overrated to some degree, even Born in the USA. But I like him. I don't know. Bruce Springsteen's fine, especially here in the United States, man. If you say you don't like Bruce Springsteen, you're almost treated as a communist, you know? It's like you gotta love Bruce Springsteen. But thanks for your comment. Yeah, I think anything from him is probably overplayed or overrated. This one I'm not sure about. Sergeant Pepper. I think it's a decent album, but it has legendary status, mostly because of the artwork, change of style, experimentation, than the actual songs. Yeah, yeah, I see what you're saying there. Um, I think it's important to put Sergeant Pepper in context too, right? I like that album. Is it overrated? Man, that's a tough one when you're talking about the Beatles. Um, Obviously, I don't unless people are just ignorant. I don't think there's not a band in history that's been more influential. So I don't know if it's overrated. This falls into the overplayed. I mean, there were a lot of experimental bands that just dedicated themselves to that in the 60s. So I can see some people kind of bristling at the Beatles doing it, but you also have to remember back then pop bands didn't do that. It just was unheard of. You didn't hear it. So for the Beatles to be the Beatles and then for them to make that shift, I think it's pretty huge. Sergeant Pepper isn't my favorite Beatles album. In fact, Abbey Road would be my favorite. But that's a controversial response. I'd like to see what other people think about that. I'd love to see your comments about that. I don't know. That's a tough one. I hear what you're saying. The Beatles made a big change, and because they were so popular, it just kind of changed everything. But I think in the world of pop music, Sergeant Pepper's arguably that first time that a band really went off the rails. It just didn't happen then. So when you consider that, the time it was released, it might change your view on that. But anyway, I thought that was an interesting inclusion for you to make. I don't know that if it's overrated. I can't. It's hard to feel like any Beatles album is overrated. They just were so ahead of their time in so many ways. Let's see. Did I? Let me find this. Okay, so I have a few more here, all from Azillarod, and I appreciate all of these choices she made because she has a lot to say about music, as I do, and I love what she said. She made some mostly. Liz, I pretty much agree with everything, all of these bands you said. There are a couple of exceptions, and I hope you don't mind. I'll call you on those. Um, yeah, particularly anything Taylor Swift. Yes. Oh my God. I'm so sick of her, Liz. I can't tell you. Like, especially if you're a football fan here in America, she's dating Travis Kelsey, and I'm already tired of the Chiefs. I'm tired of Kelsey. I'm tired of Patrick Mahomes. I'm tired of Taylor Swift. I'm tired of this. This whole fucking all of this whole narrative. In fact, the Chiefs are getting ready to play here in a little while, and it's just going to be the whole game is going to be this narrative of Travis Kelsey and Patrick Mahomes is Jesus Christ in a Kansas City Chiefs uniform, and oh look, there's Taylor Swift dancing in the press box. Anyway, sick of all that shit. But yeah, Taylor Swift, I mean, come on. She's just a little Pop Tart. She's the new Pop Tart of the day. It is what it is. Every time, every point in history has one. Um, and she's just narcissistic enough to fit right into that. She's government approved rock and roll. That's what she is. She is music that Pepsi can endorse because that's what we want, right? Government approved. That's exciting. Yeah, fuck her. She's boring. I don't even blame Taylor Swift so much. She's been doing this since she was a kid. She stumbled into this. She prances around with her tits and ass out, and there's always room for that in our society. So that's what it is. By the way, have you seen these fakes of Taylor Swift? Oh my God, these I don't know what they're calling them AI nudes or something. Like in the last few weeks, they posted these pictures of Taylor Swift, like, nude. It's not actually her, but it's just her photoshopped onto these naked bodies and these bodies getting fucked by Oscar and um, Oscar from the Muppets. Is it from the Muppets? I don't even remember, but it's funny, man. It is hilarious. I highly recommend. I think most of it's been taken down, but absolutely riotous. Taylor Swift should have a fucking sense of humor about this. It's really funny. If anything, it's just promoting her. Um, I don't know if any of you have any idea what I'm talking about. Just Google AI nudes Taylor Swift, and you'll see what I'm talking about. It's really funny. Beyonce, yeah, please. You mentioned Beyonce in your second comment here, and I'll get to that. Yeah, Beyonce, just tired narcissism, tired music. Nobody cares. Kendrick Lamar, yeah, please, give me a break. Kanye West, tired shit. But that's what the public likes. Tired music for a tired audience. It is what it is. Government approved. Yeah, that's what we want. Michael Jackson. This is where I take a little umbrage with you, Liz. Okay, all right. Um, Listen, everything he did post Thriller is shit. I'm with you on that. But Off the Wall, really? I don't know. Off the Wall is brilliant to my ears. I don't care how creepy, what a creepy bastard he was in his later years. You cannot take away what he did before that. Um, I love Off the Wall. Anytime Off the Wall, something happens with that album, I am dancing and totally into it. Cranking up the volume. Yeah, Off the Wall. Janet Jackson. Yeah, tired. All the Jackson. Oasis. Yeah, I like the first album. I like Definitely Maybe. Call me an asshole. And there are bits of What's the Story, Morning Glory I like, but plus I just love the Gallagher brothers. They crack me up, man. Especially Noel. Noel just cracks me up. I just love how he's tired of Liam and he's just a grouch. I mean, he's fucking hilarious. I don't mind Oasis so much. They're all right. Their later stuff is super boring. Beach Boys, you mentioned this again in your later comment. I'll talk more about that. Adelaide, yeah, Lady Gaga, yeah, please. Nobody cares. Now, here's the one where Liz, I am absolutely 100% unequivocally on your side. 10 from Pearl Jam. Pearl Jam. Oh my God. Yeah. Uh, oof. Well, let me read your comment. I can recall during the MTV era when everything Seattle was getting shoved down our throats, and I just wasn't buying it. Mind you, there are amazing artists from the Pacific Northwest who have shaped my musical taste for life, but that's another subject. Back to Pearl Jam. All their songs sound the same, and I don't get the accolades even now. Again, just my view. Don't be sorry. Their entire discography is subpar at best and terribly overrated. Yeah, absolutely. They're just so blah, uneventful, and completely overrated. I couldn't agree more. I don't get Pearl Jam. Don't get it. As someone who grew up in the Pacific Northwest, this was this was music that I grew up with. I was born with. It was all around me. Maybe that's part of why I'm tired of it. But I don't hate all that shit. Like I really like Nirvana. I have no problem with them. But bands like Pearl Jam and Alice in Chains and Soundgarden. Ugh. Pearl Jam especially. I remember when that 10 album came out, even the cover annoys me. They're all like slapping high fives. I don't know. Again, like government approved rock and roll. Um, I don't know. The imagery, the music, they're fine musicians, okay. But when you're making dopey music, is it okay that you're a fine musician? The music's terrible. And then Eddie Vedder. Again, not a personal attack on him. He seems like a nice guy, actually, okay? Eddie Vedder seems like a nice person. He seems to put his money where his mouth is, but his singing style, it's almost like mumble rap to me. Like can you open your mouth, dude, when you sing? Why do you have to sing like he sounds like a rabid dog gnawing on its own balls. If that's your thing, if you're into dog porn, if you enjoy listening to dogs lick their own asses, then Eddie Vedder is your champion. But for the rest of us, it's fucking torturous. Okay, so Liz, I agree. Pearl Jam, no thanks. My God. Open your fucking mouth when you sing, dude. Oh, yeah, that whole Seattle thing too. I mean, you have to feel bad for Kurt Cobain, you know. He did stumble into something that was well over his head. You know, the end of the 80s and the beginning of the 90s were there. People were tired of all the hair metal pop bullshit that was getting rammed down our throats by the radio and by MTV. The music industry was stagnant. It didn't know what the next thing was. And then Nirvana came along. The music industry saw that. They pumped them up. They blasted them out to everybody. And then all of a sudden, everyone sounded like or tried to sound like Nirvana. We started getting bands like Bush and Offspring and Green Day, which is another one you mentioned, Liz, and I'll get to that. Like everything, all of a sudden, this was the shit. This was what everyone wanted to hear. They didn't know why they wanted to hear it. They just wanted it. And that's what the music industry is about. It's about force feeding bullshit down people's throats. It's frustrating for us who love music, who actually take the time to listen to music. It matters to us. But this is something that I used to struggle with. I don't struggle with it so much anymore. The vast majority of the music buying public don't really care. They want throwaway shit. They want Pearl Jam. They want Soundgarden. They want people to tell them what things sound like. Oh, it's grunge. I have to have it. Oh my God, I heard it on the radio. I better have it because it's the cool thing. That's what people want. The vast majority of people. There are those of us who sit down and really dedicate our lives to listening to new, exciting music, but that is not the majority. So once you get right with that idea, life gets a little easier. I don't know, for me at least. Here's another comment from good old Liz. I know I mentioned the Beach Boys, but not a particular album. Pet Sounds is terribly overrated, and to read over and over how it's the greatest pop record is so strange to me, but to each their own. Based on opinion, there are bits and pieces of the album, but it's simply not to me. I can only handle harmonizing for so long. The album is just okay with some songs that I deem pretty forgettable. This is where I kind of disagree with you, Liz. I get what you're saying. Uh, I don't know that it's overrated. It took me a long time to get into the Beach Boys in general, and Pet Sounds in particular. In fact, I kind of felt like you did about Pet Sounds up until about 15 years ago. When I got into my 30s, I gave it a chance, and it was like, oh, I started hearing something that I hadn't heard before. And then as you get older, you start to put things in perspective. You know, you don't do that so much when you're young. Like when you're young, you hear something that's 40 years old, and you're just like, oh man, this is so dated. Well, of course it's dated. It came out 40 years ago, you know? So that was my issue. But when I heard it again 15 or so years ago, it started opening up to me. I started hearing it, you know, I'm like, oh, right, okay. I'm starting to understand this now. So I get what you're saying. Like Pet Sounds is not a perfect album. There are plenty of songs on there that don't work, but the songs that are ahead of its time are really, really, really ahead of its time. I think just the method in which it was recorded, I know the harmonizations are tired, but it was a new way to experience pop music in a lot of ways. New instruments were being used. Um, I get what you're saying, but I don't necessarily agree with you. I think Pet Sounds is a pretty cool album when put in perspective. And I think several of the tracks age very well. Some of them don't. I'm with you. Like, not, they all don't age perfectly. But I think a lot of it does. So I slightly disagree with you on that one, but I get where you're coming from. And then this last comment is pretty epic. I love this. Dookie from Green Day. Yeah, I mean that's just an MTV generation thing. You know, like it does kind of offend me that they're considered to be punk. You know, again, the government approved rock and roll. Nothing's more punk than Pepsi backing you, like supporting you, right? And Beyonce. Yeah. Beyonce is one of those artists that you're not allowed to dislike. You know what I mean? If you dislike Beyonce, you're not only a racist, but you're a misogynist. So I'm glad, Liz, that a woman, a Mexican woman, by the way, I hope you don't mind me mentioning that, would mention this because I agree with you. It's bullshit. It's okay to dislike Beyonce. It doesn't make you a misogynist. It doesn't make you a racist. She's boring. She is an uber narcissist, and her music is tired. Okay? You Beyonce fans just deal with it. It's okay to dislike her. It doesn't make you anything other than a music fan to be critical of her music. Her music is, as Liz puts it, overhyped, messy. I like it's the fact that the album was treated like we are supposed to react like Pumpkin when Jules opened Marcellus Wallace's briefcase and had a spiritual experience. Yeah, absolutely. I could not agree with you more. Absolutely 110%. We're supposed to like it. It's like a lot of movies these days too. Like if you dislike a movie, you're seen a certain way. People look at you askance. Oh, are you racist? Are you misogynist? Do you not support our cause? No, I just don't like it. It's an opinion. It doesn't make me anything other than a critic, okay? And Beyonce, look, she's a fine person personally, but this is about her music, and also it's hard to not think she's a narcissist. She makes movies about herself. Uh, she's very, sullen and introspective. It's like, get the fuck over yourself. You make throwaway, shitty pop music, okay? Get over yourself. There'll be another Pop Tart showing her ass and tits in 20 years, okay? We've had these our entire history of music. Every decade, there's a new woman who shows her ass and tits, and we're supposed to respect her and think of her as like a big, strong beacon of feminism. But the fact is, men are jerking off to you. And to me, that's, as long as you're being the person that you are meant to be, as long as you're being a strong individual, that's feminism. Feminism, really, at its base level, is men and women getting along and having equal rights. That's what it is. It's not about having to like something because someone's a man or a woman. No, that's not equality. That's just bullshit. And Beyonce falls into that category for me. I openly dislike her music. I think she's a narcissist and a bore. So thank you for bringing her up, Azillarad. Fuck Beyonce. And I might get my ass handed to me for this one, but I'm just going to say a disclaimer. They're one of my favorite artists. I'm just putting it out there. Pink Floyd's The Wall. Yeah. Is another album I've always found to be heavily overrated. Mind you, I love so many jams on the record, but it takes a nosedive after Run Like Hell. It's not a flawless album to me, and neither is Dark Side of the Moon, which is another favorite, and Gulp, another overrated album. There's so much more to this. Yeah, Piper at the Gates of Dawn isn't always inserted as much in the conversation as it should. Neither is Metal and can keep going. Um, I couldn't agree with you more. Yes, as usual, I agree. I actually love Pink Floyd up through Animals. I think the final cut in the wall, those are just Roger Waters solo albums. I mean, go listen to the pros and cons of Hitchhiking. They're Roger Waters albums. That's all they are. I think David Gilmour would agree with that, okay? When it comes to the wall. The best songs on the album are, when you look at the credits, the best songs on the album are songs that Gilmour had a part of. So I don't think of The Wall as so much a Pink Floyd album. It's a Roger Waters album. Obviously, Roger Waters was a big part of the band, but The Wall's tough for me to listen to. It's like a schmaltzy Broadway production. And that's how he presents it now. It's like images and he's got props on stage and he performs it himself now. It's a Roger Waters album. It's not a Pink Floyd album. I could not agree with you more. I have very, very little time for The Wall. I've been a huge Pink Floyd fan since I was a kid. For me, it looks like we might disagree here, but my favorite Pink Floyd albums are like Metal and Dark Side of the Moon and Wish You Were Here and that early mid 70s, man. Um, yeah, I like Pink Floyd as much as the next person, but everything after Animals, no, no thanks. I can't do it. Now, thank you so much for all of your comments. None of you asked me what my opinions are, but I'm going to give them to you because that's what this channel is, right? And I've been going on for almost 40 minutes here. That's enough. So I'll give you one album that I think is absolutely insanely, obnoxiously overrated. Fleetwood Mac, Rumours. Do we have to endure the songs from this album one more day? Do we have to have one more reissue of Rumours by Fleetwood Mac? Are you telling me that there were not enough copies of this pressed when it came out in the 70s? every single year, it seems like we have multiple reissues of Fleetwood Mac Rumors. People love this album. Doesn't matter how, I get it. It's a decent album. I'm not slamming the album itself. It's okay. It's okay. But the level of worship it gets, it blows my mind. It's constantly reissued. It was huge in its day, too. It's not like this album was underappreciated when it came out. This album ruled the world when it came out in the 70s. This is an album that it's like Dark Side of the Moon at this point. It just never ages. You can't repress this fucker enough. Every single time I check new releases, well, not every single time, every single year, sorry. Every single year I'm going through new releases, there's another reissue of Rumours. I mean, money gets printed because of this album. The album's okay. All right. It's got some decent cuts on it. It's all right. My parents had it growing up. Of course I've heard it. Everyone's heard it. But I think unequivocally, Rumours is the most overrated album I have ever heard. It's like, how much of this can we get? People are obsessed with this record. And again, it's okay. The album's fine. But to the point, you look at, actually, since I'm here, I was just going to say, to the point of how many reissues. Let me look this up on Discogs. I'm going to look this up. Let me type this in. There are, let's see how many pressings there are of this. There are 200, according to Discogs, there are 285 different versions of this album. It is almost 50 years old. It's 49 years old now. 285 different variations of this record. I mean, that's a lot, okay? For an album that, or you know what? Wait a minute. I'm not even looking at the right album. See, I'm so flustered by this record that I looked at the wrong album. Yeah, I was going to say, that's not the year that came out. Here we go. Okay, Rumours, 1977. That's what I thought. I was looking at another record. 671 different versions of Rumours. I thought 285 was a lot. 671. That's overrated, people. Are you telling me you can't go find an original copy of Rumours? Jesus, I mean, it was everywhere. Everyone had it. It's overrated, okay? I don't think any album deserves that many pressings, does it? I don't know. I think of my favorite records, and it's like almost 700 different pressings. That's how much of this album we need in our lexicon. So yeah, for me personally, it's Fleetwood Mac Rumours, and it's just one of those things where I don't hate the album. I just think it's overplayed to death. I don't know. I guess it's just that's the kind of sound people want. It is timeless in its way. I'll give it that. It's timeless. And the songs are written well. It's a catchy album, but man, 671. If there's bound to be people out there who love this album, please tell me what I'm missing. Why do we need this album so much? What does it do for you? Maybe it's all nostalgia, but it's not just people who grew up with this record. It's, it's kids. Kids love this shit too. So I guess sometimes you can't understand everything that's popular. I am certainly in that camp. You guys just mentioned a lot of those bands where we have hard time understanding their popularity. Although I will take issue with a little bit with Sgt. Pepper, a little bit with Pet Sounds. Michael Jackson, yeah, I take a little issue with that. Other than that, I pretty much agree with everything you guys said. I think the other one that completely mystifies me that you guys mentioned was LCD Soundsystem. Holy God. Awful. If you want to hear the real music that Murphy fuck is trying to emulate, go listen to New Order. Go listen to Carl Craig. Why would you want to listen to a ripped off, watered down, boring, yawn inducing version of that? Just go listen to the real shit, okay? Anyway, thank you for making your comments. I have a feeling that this will get many people hating on me, and that's fine. I get that. I get comments all the time denigrating my ability to have opinions and talk about things. That's okay. That's fine. That's why I'm here. You put yourself out there. You got to take the good with the bad. So anyway, thanks for being part of this. And until next time, stop listening to LCD Soundsystem and Rumours by Fleetwood Mac. It's enough. It's enough already, okay?